What you are listening to is real. The parties involved are not cool. They are actual geeks with a case pending in the court of public opinion. The party's case has been dismissed, and the dispute will be settled here on our podcast. There will be no lawyers. There will be no witness testimony. The judge's decisions are final.
Hello, I'm Judge Ivan.
I'm Judge Jonathan, and this is Geeks on Trial. Today's case, play attention.
Welcome to Geeks on Trial. This is the podcast where we settle petty disputes between actual geeks over movies, video games, board games, and more. If you'd like to submit your own geeky case for a future episode, you can email us at geeksontrial@gmail.com. You can also support our show over at patreon.com/geeksontrial for just a few bucks a month, and you'll gain early access to both our audio and our video episodes before they are released to the general public. Hey, there's someone here.
Oh, is it me?
You're here, but there's something. I think somebody broke into our system.
That's very
I
observant.
Mine, I just snuck into the back door.
I'm confused.
That voice you hear, I'll explain for you, Ivan, and for the listening and or viewing audience. That's a very special voice because on today's show, we're not going to just be dual judges. We're going to be triple judges. Because
judges?
We have a special guest judge for this week's episode from Roll for Crit, board game extraordinaire. I couldn't think of a noun, but he's here from rollforcrit.com and Roll for Crit on YouTube, where he reviews and plays board games for our viewing pleasure. Will Keeler's on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Sorry I couldn't get a nice robe like you guys, but I do have a hammer.
Oh, there you
go.
Wow,
Perfect.
that's all you. That's the main thing.
Right.
You have something to hit people with if we start fighting. With
I
each
would
other.
respect a judge more if I walked in and they had a physical claw hammer. That would be,
just a sledgehammer.
just a sledgehammer.
But I feel all his punishments would be like, you must build 5 chairs.
Right? Yeah.
It's strictly carpentry based.
You must go to IKEA.
It was real tough to book you on the show, Will. It was hard to get your contact, to get in touch with you.
I'm very elusive.
We had to jump through
I'm
a lot of
surprised you
hoops.
found me.
Yeah, it was.
I have to change my address again.
We sent out a pigeon. The pigeon found you. It was great.
We're glad you're here, and especially because this is going to be a board game themed episode. So we really need your expertise. However, before we get to today's case, we do have some opening banter to go through, and that's going to be movie related. And this is another reason that we wanted to have you on the show, because I'll explain for the folks at home that a thing that we like to do every year is the Summer Movie Wager. You can find more details at thesummermoviewager.com. We'll put a link in the episode description. But this is a thing that was started way back on the web show, The Totally Rad Show, and it's carried on now to the film cast. And anybody can do it, but that's kind of where I know it from, is these two specific podcasts. And essentially, we compete to try to predict what the top 10 highest grossing films of the summer will be every year. And there's a whole strange, complicated point scoring system to it that I'm not going to explain right now. And I don't know if we should really even read through our full lists. We'll put a link to them maybe, because we could spend like an hour talking about this if we wanted to, but we're gonna keep it just to this opening discussion. But we each have our lists here, and we're all three of us competing to see who can predict the biggest movies of the summer, and in order too. You're trying to hit like the number 1 through 10 spots correctly. And I don't know, Will, any thoughts on the summer movies this year and your list and how you feel about it?
I am worried about my list. I took a bunch of big gambits, so I'm pretty sure I'm either going to be like a really strong first or between the three of us, the solid last. Another one of our friends has a bit more of a random list, so now I'm feeling a bit more comfortable not being in last place.
Now, let me ask you, because I kind of have my ways of how to pick things, and each one of you, like, how do you pick your list? How do you go through these movies and see? Because there's a lot of movies, and a lot of movies that, like, we will never either see or will never hear from again on these lists that come out this summer. So how do you go through and pick what movies you enjoy? Jonathan? Jonathan, go.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to. It's confusing. It's like it feels like we have to toss a ball, or who has the speaking stick at
Right.
this
Well, we
current
all
time.
The speaking hammer.
Yeah, first I will just go through and look at a list of all the movies coming out, and I will just put into a document the ones that catch my attention because
Right.
they're a big sequel, or I've heard of it, or it's from a director I know, it's part of a franchise, whatever it is. And this year that ended, I got like 20 or 30 movies that way. And then I go through and I go, okay, well, I know that I pare it down piece by piece, and I'll usually have a list of like, these are definitely going to be on the list, and these are maybe going to be on the
Right.
list. And then I'll kind of just go by instinct for the first pass. Then I do go onto boxofficemojo.com, and I will try to look at past movies to kind of roughly estimate how I think these movies are going to do based on that. So my list usually goes by that first pass, but sometimes I'll like, oh, I didn't realize that movie, the last one, did pretty well, so maybe I'll bump it up a notch or something like that. And then there's also the factor of like, do I want to go crazy and think, sure, this all makes sense based on my logic and based on box office numbers, but do I feel like there's just something in the air this year that says Minions is out or whatever it is, that I think something's going to go hype off the charts or not based on just some factor that I can't define. That's how I do it.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm pretty close to that. I don't do the researching on Mojo, at least not anymore, because I did that back for the summer of Transformers Last Night and Pirates, and they both bombed. So I was like,
Can't
you know
always
what?
trust
Just go
it.
with gut feeling.
Yeah, because
The other thing I tend to like think about how I've heard people talk about. This is more for like if there's a sequel. For example, the Spider-Man movie, I've only heard positive things when people are talking about, so I assume more people are going to be excited about that. While maybe some other movies, if I heard more fatigue, I'm going to be like, this could end up like the Last Night, where people have sort of had their fill kind of deal. So
yeah.
that could move it up and down a few slots.
Yeah, I
Same for
definitely
you, Evan?
like. I go through. I didn't do a lot of research this year because I feel like in years past, when I've done the research, I've been burned, like we were saying. But like, yeah, I just kind of went with my gut and didn't really go in. But I did take myself out of it a little bit. Like, I didn't go by what movies I think I would enjoy.
Oh, you can't do that.
Because
that's almost never going to work.
Like, I don't probably wouldn't enjoy Guardians 3 as my top movie of the summer. But it's going. I think it's going to be a good movie, but it's probably not going to be my personal top movie.
Well, let's just give a little taste because the audience has no idea maybe what we've picked. But yeah, Ivan and I both put Guardians at number 1, whereas Will put the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse at number 1 with Guardians at number 2. We all had Mission Impossible kind of in the same place. Will and I both had Fast X pretty high at 2 and 3. Ivan's is down lower at, I think, 5 or 6 maybe. Most of our lists have basically the same movies, more or less. You've got Barbie on there somewhere in the bottom half. You've got Flash somewhere. You've got Transformers somewhere. Actually, for you, Ivan, Transformers is a dark horse.
Yes,
which means you're not sure if it's going to make the list.
I don't think it will. I think it's burned. Those movies have burned me before, and I'm like,
well, they burned everyone every time.
So I'm like, it needs to be on the list somewhere. So Dark Horse is what that's for.
Yeah, I don't know. Any other are there any other specific like I know we were the big. I feel like the big. There's two to me big differences, big defining things on this list. At least between, I think between both mine and Ivan's and Will's. Like you were saying that you think you might either do dead last or you might beat us both. It's Spider-Man at number 1, and it's Ivan and I both have Little Mermaid very high, and you put it down at number 9. And I think those two things are the biggest differentiators between our lists. I don't know how that's going to shake out.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other ones, but those are the ones that would actually, I think, affect the point scores. Like, the rest would be, like, 1 or 2 kind of thing. When those would be, like, the things that are like, well, either you're really going to have a boost or you're going to be lagging behind.
And I think I did a lot of these. I went with my gut on with advertising. So, like, I put Barbie higher than I think either one of you, if I'm looking at the list correctly.
Yeah.
No, Will was higher than mine. But
Oh,
because
sorry, yeah.
Because I saw a lot of advertising for it. It's why in places where it shouldn't have been. I was like, all right, I'm on the Gundam subreddit. Why is there Barbie stuff here?
right, and the same thing with like the Little Mermaid. There was that whole controversy that of the actress playing the Little Mermaid. So it's been in the zeitgeist for a long time. So I'm thinking either people are going to, they're either going to go out and see it because they want to see it, or as oh, I need to support this. So I'm like, let me put it a little higher on the list.
You see, that actually was one of the reasons I put it a little lower, because I actually thought the Little Mermaid already came out because of all that. So I was like, oh,
Right.
it's this summer.
Well, because it's when
Well,
they
it
announced
did. I don't know if you know this. It did already come out. It was in 1989.
So I was
Okay.
right.
And I feel go ahead.
You feel like that? You
I
do?
feel like that, yeah.
I was just gonna say, to me, the toughest ones on this list are Barbie, which you mentioned, because I put it at number 10. I feel like I had it higher before. I feel like that could be a huge surprise and go way up. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. And the other one for me is The Flash. I think The Flash either could bomb or it might make the top 5. I think it could, if it's really good, I think that could really perform in a way we're not expecting.
I'm also still surprised on how you guys put the Fast and the Furious, Fast X, so high.
I put it. They've always done well in the past. Many of them have been in the top 3
because I feel
in
like
past summers.
They have to die at some point, but maybe they won't.
You're
maybe
right.
They have just a following, but
You're right.
And is this the 10th movie? Is that why it's the X?
Yeah.
So maybe it will get more than I'm thinking. That was the one thing because it's the 10th anniversary.
And I believe it's. I think this is part 1 of the final movie.
Of course it is.
I believe. But yeah, I don't know. Will, Fast X?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Sorry.
Get it all out.
The thing with Fast X is it's part of the, at least in my head, there's certain audiences you think of and the summer big blockbuster action explosion.
Right.
Fast X is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't
it's summer, and it comes out early too. It comes out in May, which means it has more time to make money.
And I do think it's funny that we all have in some way or another a superhero movie in our top movie, in our number 1.
I mean, usually there are 3 in my top 5.
Right.
They're almost always at the top of the list.
Because those are the blockbuster explosion fighting. That's the what people want to see.
They're reliable.
The reason superheroes in general, I think, just the trend. First of all, they're Disney. Mm-hmm. Anything Disney gets a buff. Right. The superheroes they're the explosion ones, but they also cross over into this is the movie I take my kid to.
Right.
So those are instantly going to do very well unless they're really bad movies. I put Flash lower mostly because DC has shown to be usually poor movies.
Yeah,
but I think you're right about Flash. I find it funny I put Barbies above Transformers. Even though Transformers has been what are we on, the 7th movie?
5, 6, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it depends if you count Bumblebee. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So you'd think that would be the better one, but I think like Ivan said, and as a fan of Transformers, just looking at what I've seen and a lot more ads for Transformers, but just
they're definitely going in on the marketing for it. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, that's Transformers. That's what they do.
Well, and it's funny too that you mentioned Disney because Disney has bought out so many companies that it's a Disney summer.
It's always a Disney. It's been that way for a decade.
Well, I think it's growing more because now it's
Maybe.
they have I would say 80% of the studios now. So
that might be a little high, but yeah.
79,
maybe 79.
79% of the studios they have. Yeah.
79.5 maybe.
All right, so I have one question for you guys. Because this is a movie that if I was ranking that I think I'd be most excited for, it'd put higher, but I have it as a dark horse. And that's Oppenheimer. Both you have it on the 8th spot.
Yeah.
Do you think, why? Because that is, at least, I don't think that's explosion as if we were talking about before.
So Oppenheimer, is the movie about the atom bomb guy.
Right.
Directed by Christopher Nolan. And that is why it's number 8.
Yeah,
because
I went with director alone.
If you look at Christopher Nolan is one of those very few magic directors who doesn't make sequels, but Dunkirk, Inception, like almost all his movies hit the top 10 if they come out in the summer. The one recent exception is Tenet, because there were no movies in theaters that summer when it came
Right.
out.
We don't count that year. I also chose it too because like out of all the superhero imagination movies, this is the one where I think the older audience would go towards.
That's fair.
You know, this is the one.
Usually I would put something like that, but with so much stuff going on, that's why I dropped it. But like I said, if I was to rank these by what I want to see, I'm pretty sure that's top 3.
Well, and
Well,
usually I add in some kind of like a senior citizen film, is what I call it. Like, what was it? The last few years they had like the motel movie. I forgot what it's called.
You mean porn?
Yeah, no, where this group of elderly people would go to this hotel, the Grand Miracle something.
Oh God!
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But like
now
that,
I do.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't.
But like that kind of movie where it's like, because we have to like, it's a well-rounded. You have to figure out that well-rounded group.
There were definitely movies, like I usually kind of in the same boat will put a horror movie,
Right.
a movie that's more like female skewed, and a comedy probably. But this year there was just no room for those because there are so many big franchise movies that like there was like the new Insidious is coming out. There's that Strays movie, the Talking Dog movie that's a comedy that I feel like in other years I might have put on there, but I just couldn't. There's too much. Barbie kind of and Little Mermaid are like other movies are kind of filling
they fill all everything you just said.
Yeah.
Barbie will die into turn into sea foam at the end if we go by the story.
They're also the big tentpole movies is a thing, and usually it's too different. And it feels like now they're trying to make the tentpole movies appeal to different
Well, and that's why,
people.
like, I think the Barbie movie, I don't know anything about it, but I feel like that might be the summer comedy, if it is comedy.
That too.
I mean, I put it higher than you guys, but one of the reasons I actually do have a bit, one nostalgia, I think is going to help it a lot. But the other thing is, I saw that, oh my God, now I'm blanking on his name, from Arrested Development.
Jason Bateman?
The kid.
Michael
Cera Michael Cera.
Michael Cera is in it as like a deep cut character, like who's like one of the early print
Skip.
figures. I'm like,
The dog.
oh, well, they're doing some weird research and stuff on it, so that means this doesn't look like it was a cheap just throw something out and slap Barbie on it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a Greta Gerwig movie. It's
Right.
like an art house
Yeah.
Barbie movie. You know what I mean? Like that's part of why I don't know how it's gonna do. I don't really know who it's for.
Right.
I don't know if people are gonna
Now-
take their kids to it. I don't know if they are. It's PG-13. That was part of my thing.
And
you
it's
know?
we were talking about nostalgia, and I'm like, oh, this is a summer of nostalgia. But it seems like the past 10 summers, that's what they go for.
Our whole lives.
Right.
Oh yeah, no,
They're
nostalgia
pulling out
is a
nostalgia.
main marketing
Yeah.
thing now.
You're just
Absolutely.
noticing it now because now it's nostalgia for our generation.
Right.
When we were growing
Yeah,
up, it was
it's more
Starsky
of-
and Hutch and the Brady Bunch movies or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I guess yeah.
It's all comes through in cycles.
Now, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we're right now talking about which one we think we make the most money. By the way, this is just in the U.S.,
Right, just domestic.
to be clear, because that would change a lot. Transformers would probably slaughter these then as
Right.
soon as it hits China. But what would be your 3 movies, though, you actually want to see out of these?
Great question.
See, I want to see...
Like, obviously,
Or
if
maybe-
you could, you see all. But
Or
like,
maybe just not on this list. What are your...
Yeah, there could be ones.
for
Guardians
me-
is definitely on the list for me because I want to see the third Guardians. Indiana Jones, like it's going to be like a guilty pleasure because like I feel like it's going to be bad because like I've
We'll
been
see.
burns. But yeah, Guardians, Indiana Jones, and Little Mermaid for me.
Little Mermaid.
I want to
All
see
right.
the Little Mermaid movie
It's not going to be good. I'm
That's
telling
why I
you
wanna
right
see
now.
it. because Disney has been doing great with all these conversion from cartoon to live action.
I think it's going to kill at the box office. I
it
think
is.
it's going to be a terrible movie. Now,
Honestly,
yeah,
yeah, I think that's another reason I put it too low on my list is because I was thinking more of
you let your
what I like.
personal... But we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, for me...
I was like, respect my cartoon movies.
Mission Impossible is definitely pretty high. I love those movies. both Guardians and Spider-Man I'm going to be excited about. The one I'll say that's not on this list is a movie called Blackberry, which is about the founding of the digital BlackBerry, which is it's from Matt Johnson, who did one of my favorite like underground TV shows and web series, Nirvana the band, the show. And he also did what movie? The Dirties, if anyone's seen that, or Operation Avalanche. But that's the movie I'm actually like. I think that will be my actual favorite movie of the summer, but it's not going to touch this list.
Right. Well, that's why, like, going through that full list, it's like, oh, there's so many movies that are just getting, like, why are you even putting them out in the summer?
Right.
Like, they're going to get swallowed up alive. Will?
For me, like I said, Oppenheimer.
That's
I'm
up
really
there
curious
for sure.
about that. Anything with, like, nuclear stuff in general, but also, I mean, like Ivan 2, Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible both fall into the, like, generic middle-class white guy's going to like this, and I'm in there. But the other one, and this is sort of like Ivan with The Little Mermaid when you said you want to see it because it's bad, but it's not Little Mermaid. This isn't on any of our lists. It's called Knights of the Zodiac.
Your favorite movie.
Huh.
It's based on an anime, so I want to see this. Like, I'm like, this can't be good based on the other live action adaptations. But I'm like, you know what? It's a weird one, and I feel like I'm going to be laughing when I go through it.
It's going to be, like, this summer is going to be the summer where I'm probably going to buy the A-list or Movie Pass, something, because there's a lot of movies that I actually want to see this summer.
Talk to me
also,
about
on a side note, for that anime movie, because you were just saying before, why did they, like, you know what? We could take on this summer.
It's counter
This
programming.
is the one we go out for.
Well, I don't even know. Who knows? Sometimes it's just like a month they have to release it by to make their money or something.
True, but it's just like, God, they chose the most crowded summer.
It's a crazy summer. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be exciting. I'm most of the movies on the list I actually am looking forward to seeing. There aren't.
Oh,
I don't.
No,
most of them I don't think will be bad.
I mean, I honestly think Barbie's gonna be a fun watch.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be great.
I probably won't see Transformers.
I might see it.
Look, like I said, I'm a fan, and I'm not. Just the coloring of the robots. But
come on, you'll see it if I make you see it.
Oh well, yeah, but it's not gonna be. It's not of my own volition, which I think is important to say. And
you will be tied up.
Jonathan has to drag me to movies now, unfortunately.
That's fine.
Yeah. I will put a gun to your head. All right. We will have, like I said, links to all this stuff. If you want to join the wager, you can. You still have a week before it officially starts. The first weekend is May 5th, the weekend Guardians comes out. So
yeah, and then your turn is over.
Yes. I think you might still be able to join, but you can't be like officially considered for rankings because you already have information.
Well, while you're at it, because the reason, whether I don't know how you're going to show this, put the lists up, but you can just throw our usernames down there. And then that way, if you make a list, you can throw ours and compare with us and then watch as the scores go around and as we just panic.
Yeah, we'll do it. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't tried it, I recommend it. But we must get to today's case. We must get down to business, gentlemen.
That's right. The turn order for the movies is done. Their turn is done.
That's right.
On the next person's
that
turn.
phase has ended, and now phase 2, and then cleanup. Okay, everybody listening, this is a court show, if you weren't aware, which is why we're going to get to today's case, which comes to us from the internet. You can find a link in our episode description. And today's defendant is Doug. Doug, in our case today, was enjoying a session of the classic family game Sequence, appropriately enough, with his family. Now, for the uninitiated, in Sequence, players draw traditional playing cards, ace, 2, what have you, and are then able to place chips onto a board matching that card. And the goal is to make sequences of 5 chips in your color on the board by getting those cards in the right alignment. Now, if you play a one-eyed jack, some of the jacks in this game have only one eye. If you do that, you get to remove a chip from one of your opponents on the board. And that is exactly what Doug did. But for some reason, his brother, who was also playing the game, didn't notice which chip he removed exactly. And when he asks Doug to reveal this, Doug refuses. And he says, "You should have been paying attention." And now Doug's brother thinks this is an act of poor sportsmanship. He ends up leaving the table with the game unfinished, while Doug insists that this is how he always plays with his friends, and he doesn't believe he should be required to disclose his every move when playing a board game. Now, as triple judges here on Geeks on Trial, it's our job to determine whether we dig Doug's smug mug, or if another, his brother from the same mother, has his druthers. By the way, an important thing I want to note, I did look up what the 3 version of duel is.
Okay.
And now I ended up saying triple. However, according to some sources, another way to say triple that would be equivalent to duel is trial.
Oh.
So
Well,
I thought
trial of judges.
that was a
that
bit...
just sounds like the plural of judges.
Yeah.
Like a gaggle of geese, a trial of judges.
trial of judges.
Yeah, there
A
probably is
hunting
word
of
for that.
lawyers.
Interesting stuff. All right, so obviously we're talking about board games today. Let's start off with the fact that this game is the game of sequence.
Right.
I have, other than the fact that part of the board game's name is my online handle, Quentz,
Yeah, okay.
I do not have awareness of this game. I haven't played it. I know, Ivan, you were saying you did. Do you have sequence experience? You don't.
Not to my knowledge. I think at this point, Jonathan, your experience with board games and mine, if it's not a TCG, are pretty close.
Well, this seems like the kind of game that maybe you could have played growing up with your
Right.
family or something.
Which is how I played
'cause
it.
it-
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the deal with this game?
I could honestly tell you, I really don't 100% know because the last time I played it, I was 10. From what I remember, the board is a giant cardboard board with playing cards all up and down it, just different playing cards, and you're given your chips, and you can put them on the board. Your
Yeah.
hand is literally a hand of playing cards, which I believe it's 2 packs of playing cards, but don't quote me on that.
Having read the rules, I can confirm.
And that's about all I know.
That's basically it. That's like
so-
you go. I play a Queen of Hearts, and then there's a space on the board, Queen of Hearts. You put your chip there,
Right.
and if you can't play a card, then you get to draw a new one.
And it feels
that's
like
the game.
it was a game that was made with people's leftover poker things.
yeah.
Like they had
that,
cards. Instead of, if you don't have you could definitely play this without the game itself if you have a bunch of cards and chips laying around, because you could just make the board by just putting down cards on the table and using just leftover poker chips. So this seems like a very much like a retirement home game or like a grandma game.
Yes.
Like, hey, you want to
Now-
play some sequence? Here's some hard candy.
Now, before we continue, and I think I already know the answer, but I want to confirm, as you said, you read the rules, Jonathan, and
I did.
Ivan, maybe you know it as well.
They're a page long.
This is not a lot. I forget the exact term, but you are taking turns. This isn't everyone going at the same time.
Right.
Correct. Yes, you take turns one at a time. You get to place down a chip, or
I think that is important because there's a difference of, I can take my time and turn versus we're all grabbing stuff. Well, you should have been in the game because there is no pausing.
Oh no,
Yeah.
this game is not a gamer's game. This is a light family game up there with I would say it's lighter than like a Monopoly. Like
for sure.
You don't need to know what's going on. You don't need to
even Spoon sort of has that.
Right,
So,
like, it's very
and I would
What did you
I
say?
was going to say, that definitely falls in the you better be paying attention category because the whole point is grab the spoon in the center, don't be the last one out.
No, this is what what do they call it? Like a pretzels and beer game or what
beer and pretzels. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of sitting there.
You got to get them in the right order.
Listen, trademark is
or it's
mine.
meaningless.
You got to drink first, otherwise those pretzels are terrible.
you
We
know.
all know only drunk people enjoy pretzels.
true.
Well, it's the
They're too
rule
dry.
of the shorter syllable has to come first. You have Tom and Jerry, Rick and Morty.
Oh.
That's the way it is. I don't
Huh.
know why. That's the way
Ivan
it
and
is.
Jonathan.
He's right.
Yep.
He's right. But
Well,
it's
it's kind of like me first. But
I'm
yeah.
sorry?
Han and Han.
What? Han and Han. That's it. So it's one of those games that's not it's not a serious game. It's like you play this when you go to the beach. You play, this is a lighthearted
Right.
game.
Yes. Yeah. That's definitely worth noting about this one. Now, not talking specifically about sequence, but I kind of want to know what everyone's feelings are in general when gaming. And it should be noted, I guess, that as we kind of alluded to, we're more used to playing typically the more modern hobbyist complex board games, certainly compared to Sequence, more
Right.
complex.
We're a gaming elite, if you will.
We're better than you.
We are better than you in every single way.
But what is your typical stance on revealing what you just did if someone wasn't paying attention and they ask, or B, I feel like this is sort of related, but not exactly the same thing, but I feel like this comes up a lot in our games, is narrating what you're doing as you do it when you're playing. So just being in the habit in general of being like, all right, on my turn, I move a piece here, and then I draw this card, and I do this and that and the other.
I am big on people doing that because usually I'm in my turn. Because when you're gaming, you want to be planning your next turn and following what else the other people at the table are doing so you don't miss something and don't screw up. So, having somebody tell you, hey, I'm moving this here, or just knowing that they have a turn going on is helpful. And it depends also what the game you're playing, because if you're not supposed to tell somebody, then that's cheating. But I'm very big on you should be paying attention at the table, you shouldn't be on your phone, whatever, yada yada yada. But you should also be like, hey, I'm taking my turn.
So
Probably.
The way I view it, well, there's two people to look at here. There's the person taking their turn and everyone else. So we'll quickly go over everyone else, in this case, the brother. If you're at a family game night, maybe you get a little distracted, you're talking with people, because for many people, games are more social experiences.
Right.
But there is a certain point when you should be able to, this probably not for this game. I'm thinking something a bit more, some of the more complex ones that we play. You should have a general idea what to do on your turn.
Right.
Once it comes back around. So don't go full in on your phone and be like, all right, what do I do again?
But
that's an issue.
This
now,
is a game that you have a
right.
hand of cards.
It's
if
more
they
that
match
they don't
the board
say
or
how
not.
the person was distracted, and I just feel like it needs to be said.
No, everything you said I agree with so far.
Now, for the person taking their turn, I cannot think of a single game where you are not allowed to be asked how many cards in hand. What did you do?
Right.
If it's open information, people are allowed to know. It's very obvious that Doug, was it, I believe?
Doug is our defendant.
Has never played a tournament game. Because you will get kicked out of a game of Magic if you tell someone, I ain't telling you what I did.
Oh, that's interesting. See, I didn't know that.
Oh, no, that's unbelievably important.
Because I would think it would be the opposite, where it's in a tournament, you are keeping your cards to yourself, literally. You're
there are so many cards that could make a difference, and especially if, this card, the game doesn't have it, but I could have a card that interrupts your turn.
Okay.
So that's why you go through it. When I play, Jonathan mocks me when I'll get silent in a game. That's not because I'm not saying my turn. I'm not usually pointing out I'm 1 point away from winning.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay, yeah.
If Will's quiet, it means there's something he doesn't want you to know. Right. He's doing
but
something
if asked,
good.
I will say, in fact,
Sure.
In a card game, I will literally point out, the most recent one I've been to is Digimon. I'll be like, hey, just a reminder, this guy has retaliate, so he'll kill your guy if you attack it.
Right.
Because I don't want to be the guy who's like, by the way, this killed your guy. What? Yeah, no take backs kind of thing, I want all information on the board that should be open.
Now, I do think there's maybe a distinction, or maybe not, depending on your view, between information like how many cards do you have in your hand, or versus what did you just do? Information that is current versus something you did in the past. Is there a cutoff? I don't know that it's necessarily fair, and this is not in this case, but should you have to say, oh, what did you do last turn? What if a full round has passed or something?
Okay.
It definitely there's a full round. Don't ask me about 5 turns ago because I won't even remember.
Right, that's part of it.
I think the other thing is if this would involve, only because I imagine this would be more annoying bookkeeping. Once again, going back to trading cards, it'd be if I played a card that has revealed top 5 cards of my deck, and pick one card to show you guys and add to my hand. If you ask me later, what'd you add to your hand again? I would be like, look, we went through that already.
Right.
Yeah.
I showed it to you before. Now, if you were to ask me, just as soon as your turn starts after that move, I'd be like, oh yeah, I did this and I added a mountain to my
Right.
hand. So there's
Yeah.
definitely, you're right, there is a time period, as always. But
Yeah.
And Jonathan,
not as soon as the person's turn starts.
what do you think? What is your view?
Yeah. I mean, some of this comes down a little bit to rules lawyering, which I haven't been known to do myself.
What?
Wherein you're like, well, the book says this or doesn't say this, and how do you read it exactly?
Right.
And usually, like Will said, stuff like the discard pile or things like that are considered open information. You're not supposed to conceal it. You can't be like, I'm not going to tell you, or I'm going to not show you what things you should be able to have access to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's largely still true for things like, if I just made a move, then here's the thing. Here's the truth. In terms of rules, is it strictly not allowed? Because we're not talking about a tournament here or anything like that. By the rules of sequence, and this is where,
By the rules of sequence. So,
people can start to get annoying. Technically, there's no rule that says you must tell someone if they ask you what you just did. You know
Right.
what I mean?
But is there a rule that says you are not to tell?
Right.
Because I know, for example, something say you're not allowed to look through the discard pile.
well, this is when you
and
get on
change
your
the order.
phone, you go to boardgamegeek.com, and you figure out who wrote what and how the wording is set. This is half of our game night,
Well-
folks.
In which case, Jonathan, though, I'd say the problem is then you're applying to another set of rules, which is the social rules of the situation.
Before
If
we
the
get to the
game
social rules,
does not clarify,
Yeah.
you're dealing then with social rules.
That's
That's like the tournament scene. Tournaments have extra rules because there's prizes.
Right.
Yeah, I happen to have the rules of sequence in front of me here. And there is an interesting section that I want to read that isn't totally relevant to this, but maybe we could construe it as such. There is a section in these rules, and I don't know if this is every version of sequence, but the ones that I found, called Table Talk. And under Table Talk, it says, there must be no table talk or coaching team members. You can play this game in teams. If a teammate says anything that alerts a fellow teammate to the fact that they are about to do something that they shouldn't, every member of that team must forfeit one card of their choice from their hand, placing it on their discard pile. When the draw deck becomes depleted, all discard piles are shuffled together, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. But really, I think now this rule is mainly there so that, because when you play in teams, I think you're supposed to, it's like, does a mahjong work this way, kind of?
Right.
You're supposed to not be just working with each other out loud. You're supposed to intuit each other's moves. But if you did want to be annoying, you could read, there must be no table talk,
Which,
as
okay.
possibly applying to a situation like this.
And that's in
Well,
there.
I will counter
Yeah.
and be annoying that it's under the team section.
Right. Well,
So
it's-
only in the team play does everyone have to be quiet.
that's the thing. It says there must be, this came up in a game we were playing last night. It's like a very annoying grammar thing. There must be, quote, there must be no table talk or coaching team members. You could read those as two separate clauses.
Actually,
I don't
it is.
think that's the intended spirit of it.
Well, I
That's
will
the thing.
argue then.
Please
that,
do.
Doug already broke it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he said, "I don't have to tell you," which
He
therefore
spoke
is
at the
table talk.
table.
He struck at the table.
Yeah, you know,
Choke him with his cards. Because technically,
It
or
doesn't matter. It's broken one way or the other.
isn't the or meaning it's one or
Yeah.
the other?
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Which is weird. I wouldn't think that this is a game where they would. I do think that's strictly for team play, but it's not actually explicitly written that way. But it doesn't make
Yeah, I
sense
mean-
otherwise. I'm just being, I
Well,
have to throw it
I
in there.
well, that's
as a point of info.
That's what you're supposed to do as judge, isn't it?
That's right.
Well,
that's right.
This
But-
game is heavily played in Boca Raton, so we need to get somebody from Boca to figure out. Never mind.
You know what it is, Jonathan? That rule is in there because everyone's playing in Boca Raton, and half the time someone falls asleep while playing, and they don't want to wake them up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. Okay, so I've heard the three arguments here.
Is that including yours? Is that
yes.
the third one?
Okay. I listen to myself. I have headphones on. I can hear myself talking back.
Okay.
So this is an interesting thing because this is more of a party game. So do those rules change for either one of you? So like when you're playing a more heavy game and you don't want to like hold these rules, so you do want to hold these rules tight, where it's like you're playing a Monopoly or a Sequence or something like this, where it's like you kind of, there's going to be some talking of other people around you or eating while playing or, you know, stuff like that. So like, are you more fast and loose with these rules in like a party game than you are a what's the rating that they say for that? Not
Like a complexity or a weight, heavier weight.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It depends on the game and the mechanics. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, I can't see why I would care if people were talking, even giving strategies to each other.
Well, that's
Like,
the interesting thing.
I'm thinking more like a werewolf style game. I might be a little bit more because I feel that really does ruin the fun.
Right, because that's the point of said game.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
you know, if I'm excited, I'm like, finally I'm a werewolf, and someone goes, I saw Will's card, he's a werewolf.
Right. A funny thing to note too here is that Doug apparently plays this game with his friends like frequently, like maybe on a weekly basis, like, and they take it seriously, and that's where he has kind of adopted this behavior. Is they play it very like silently. They don't like they've played it so many times that they just get into it, and for them, part of the game is paying attention. And for that group, it's like, that's fine. But I think in a family environment, I think it's not so much what the genre of game or the weight of the game, but the atmosphere of where you're playing it in this case.
Right, because I'm sure like when you play a
How
game...
old is Doug?
When I play a game.
No.
What was the question?
Willie asked how old is Doug?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. When you play a game
100.
at game night versus playing a game with your family, I'm sure certain niceties kind of change in those two different groups.
Sure.
You know, like certain rules go out the window when you're playing with your family. Like you're going to have to like grin and bear a certain amount of things that you wouldn't accept at a game night. And it sounds like he's not adapting to that.
Right. I mean, I will just say personally, if someone ever asks me, what did you just do? I would never. Have you ever had this happen? Either you did this or someone else did it, where they refused to say what they just did?
Yes.
Did you? Don't tell me it was me.
No, it was the same friend that we were talking about previously.
Oh God! I was
Barrett?
like, wait,
Yeah.
please don't tell me it's somehow me and I don't remember.
Well, I mean, do you remember the context?
I don't remember the game, but I think it was like one of these heavier games that we started at like 11 o'clock at night. And it's like we were all kind of tired, so it's like we were kind of like not messing up, but like you're not fully paying attention at like midnight when you're playing a Battlestar Galactica game.
Well, here's when there's certain, I could excuse it a little more in certain instances. You mentioned Battlestar Galactica or Werewolf. If it's a social deduction game and you're meant to be hiding things from people, that is a different situation. Then there is something to that.
I think I just used that for an example. But
yeah. Like that, then I could see that being appropriate. But it definitely depends on the game.
I think it's only come up once, and it's from that said person.
Yeah.
But
what a
other than that, what
piece of shit.
Oh. But other than that, like I don't think it's ever come up in our group or even like playing at like conventions and stuff. Like it's normally people want you to enjoy it, and if you don't know what just happens, it's going to bog the game down.
Yeah, most of my experience, whether it be in our usual game nights or card tournaments, everyone's more than happy to just quickly say, they'll maybe do a summary like, yeah, I just drew and played these. Like,
right.
Basically everything you want to know. That would be open information.
And what would he have done? Like, what he didn't see which token he put down for which card?
Which chip was removed. He removed one of someone else's.
Okay, then that's not like he could have asked the entire table. Like I don't know.
that's all. Maybe it was just the two of them playing. I don't know who else was playing. That is something else too to maybe consider. Is it's also another thing if you're playing like a heavy head-to-head game, like you said, like Magic or something. Well, but Matt, that's the opposite. You said that was the rule, but I almost could see an argument like
No,
if
I
it's
see what
very
you're saying
competitive between
because
two of us.
no, yeah, there comes. It's one of the reasons I prefer multiplayer game. I think it sort of almost just spreads out the animosity.
Right.
Because there's only one other opponent. It's like it's laser focused on them. I'm like, I don't want to give them any ground. But there's still the duel. You know, you should try to be chivalrous, I assume.
Yeah. A gentleman, a figure of honor, or honor, as the British say.
Honor, or as my family says,
yeah, it is.
honor.
I assume it actually has to be 2-player at this point because, like, remembering what reading the case over, it wasn't like my parents were disappointed or my other siblings.
Right. Didn't mention their reaction. But then wouldn't it be, if there's only two of them, wouldn't you kind of probably be able to easily figure out which chip was removed, or at least deduce it?
Yes.
Pretty closely.
It feels like you should be able to make a guess if there's only two.
And
yeah,
like,
or
if there's more than two, I could imagine getting lost in the...
Yes, yeah.
And are we getting like, okay, yeah, not a lot of times we get the full story. Was it like, was this person doing this multiple times? Were they like actively up getting a drink? Were they like...
The brother, you mean?
Having a conversation? Yeah, were they having a conversation? Were they...
Sure.
You know, like, was it a repeat offense where the guy's like, no, I'm not telling
Yeah,
you.
right. Yeah, I don't think it was that, but yeah, if it's the 10th time he hasn't paid attention.
Oh,
then...
yeah. I will say
luck.
I don't think it's that, only because I would have assumed, because we're hearing this from Doug's perspective,
right,
by the way.
Right.
Usually if someone does that, any evidence they can have to bring you onto their side, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And like at all gamers, like we've all done this. We've all like,
Hashtag not all gamers, but go on.
You know, like the three of us are playing a game. Me and Jonathan start talking while Will's taking his turn. We both, oh crap, what did he do? Like everyone has done this at some point in their gaming career.
Which is why it's fine to be like, can you tell me what you did again? Because first off, I've done turns when I do a bunch of crazy stuff and you're like, what'd you do, Will? And it's like, well, it turns out I just generated 5 power.
Right. Oh,
like,
I just
it
beat
looks
the
like
game.
I did a bunch of crazy stuff, but I didn't really do
Yeah.
anything. And this goes back to that. It's a social thing. You might want to talk. And even for me, one of the reasons I sort of try to distract myself in certain games when it's not my turn, because I can't affect the game. And if I start thinking, oh, right, I need to buy this piece and this piece. And then when Ivan buys that piece, I'm like, no, that ruins my entire turn. But once again, that goes to what I was saying earlier. You better be ready and have a general idea what to do when it does come to your turn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more of knowing your own play style and how quickly you can come up with a strategy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Are we ready to give verdicts on
I think
this
it's
one?
time for verdicts because it sounds like we have...
The hammer is ready.
We have... Jesus Christ. It sounds
He
like
was a carpenter.
We have a case that we have a choice in our head that we are ready to make.
Well, Will, you're our guest judge. Do you want to go first, or maybe you want to go last?
I have no problem going first.
Great. Take the lead on this one.
So in this case, I do have to declare Doug is guilty.
Wow. You want to smack your head with that?
Jonathan?
Oh well, give me a little. Give me a little
Oh,
more.
I wasn't sure. I was
Give a little sum
Yeah,
up.
I think almost for any game, and as far as I can tell, this is not a game with a lot of hidden information.
Right.
It just, and this is not a tournament scene where even then people would. You could have been just like, look, I removed this chip. I just feel the way he said it, yes, I don't care if your friends play that way. Just because your friends decide to play card games on motorcycles doesn't mean that every card game you play has to be on a motorcycle.
Which I will pitch to you, and you can have this idea for free, Will. That's your next video.
Card games on motorcycles?
Card games on motorcycles.
Unfortunately, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has already done an entire season of that.
There you go.
Well,
You think I was original and came up with that?
yeah, I'm disappointed in you. All right, so that's one not guilty. We can't have a tie on this episode.
No,
Or, sorry,
one
that was
guilty.
a guilty. Sorry,
Guilty.
that was a guilty. Sorry. I'm trying to sway the audience. No, I mean I have put forth some arguments in defense of Doug, and I do think there are possible circumstances that could exonerate him in terms of official rules,
Yeah,
etc. However, in this instance, given the situation and the atmosphere and the setting and the fact that it was just such a simple ask of Doug with a family member at a casual gaming table. There's no question, even if Doug was technically could be argued to be in the right vis-a-vis the rules or what have you, ergo concordantly.
Mm-hmm. Jargon.
He was a dick.
Yep.
It's just a dick move. There's no reason for it. So I definitely agree that he's guilty.
Yeah, we all might have the 3 exact same answers because he is guilty. Like, it doesn't matter. You mentioned it's your family member. It doesn't matter if it's a family member, a close friend, your significant other, or just a stranger you've met on the street and you're playing this game for the first time. Big thing to me in life and in board gaming, don't be an asshole. Like, you want, it's so hard to get people to play a game with you and repeat games and just come back to the table every week. You want to be inviting, and sure, it might be annoying that, like, oh, he doesn't remember again. He's not a top tier gamer like I am. But you have to kind of bend some of your rules. We live in a society, people. So I definitely say Doug is guilty.
Wait a
But
minute.
remember, just don't be an asshole when it comes to board gaming. It's fine everywhere else.
Right.
Yeah. But why is the McDonald's jingle?
Because I tried to do the Doug theme song, and it turned into the McDonald's theme song.
Okay, yeah, that's do.
Yeah.
No, but it's do. There's no buzz.
I thought it was a
Is this the next court case? Your friend sings the wrong
There
theme
might
song?
be buzz in the interstitial music in the show. I think the theme song is do.
Is it?
We're gonna have to look it up when this is over and figure this out.
When's our Doug live action movie coming out?
Oh, 2029.
I'm auditioning for the role.
Right.
I think I can nail it. Well, that was our verdict on today's case. If you at home listening or watching this episode have an opinion, I can't imagine honestly that it's different than ours, unless you are Doug. And even I think Doug doesn't feel like he's in the right here. You could email us to our address, which is geeksontrial@gmail.com. Or you can also go there and submit your own case for a future show. If you've had a dispute like this that surrounds a board game where you think you're in the right, or maybe it's about a movie, a video game, what have you, anything geeky, we want to hear about it. Email us at geeksontrial@gmail.com or use our handy-dandy form, which is in our episode description. There is a link to it.
Now, before we wrap up the show, we did miss a vital part of the case. What is our punishment?
Oh, right. We need to sentence
We
Doug.
need to sentence Doug.
We all
And
agree he's guilty.
He's guilty. He needs some kind of sentencing. So what is do we want to do a group sentencing? Do we want to do 3 separate
We
sentencing?
each throw in a part.
Yeah. Just throw out if anyone has ideas.
He should have
All
to,
right.
play in a mass multiplayer game, and he has to be the
Yeah.
person at conventions who helps people constantly.
He has to play a mass game of diplomacy. But once his turn is done, he has to leave. Can't see what anyone else does. And when he comes back, is not allowed to ask what happened.
That sounds
I was
great.
like, maybe we tape his mouth shut so he can't ever speak, no matter what game it is.
Right.
We're going to really reinforce that no table talk
Right.
rule.
Yeah, he's got to be mute for 3 months. He's not allowed to speak.
People around him might be happier.
I do think also, before we continue,
Sorry, Doug.
even though Doug was found guilty and the brother innocent, I think we should issue a warning to the brother.
Yes.
We don't want to see you back here in the court case because you just asked someone what someone did 3 turns ago because you were on your cell phone.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
there is some potential borderline behavior there, especially for a game that's this simple.
Right.
You're innocent now, but you remember,
Again-
ignoring turns can end you back up in this courthouse.
Do you think-
something. Yeah.
Do you
Do
think
I
he was
think?
paying attention to this
Well, yeah.
case? He was trying to think of his next move.
I mean, that's the thing. Something could have we don't know. That could completely. I mean, I already don't think the brother is really guilty, but something if they're playing at home and maybe someone dropped something in the kitchen or something and he looked away,
Right.
and that's why
Yeah,
he
look,
missed
there
it.
are always circumstances that we could be if we had more information.
But this is
from
a
what we
very
know
simple
now-
game, so if
Yes.
unless there was some kind of loud noise, if you know that your opponent's about to remove a chip, you probably should just be seeing what they do.
Right.
Yeah,
But-
well, and we can think of it, not to go too long again, but like
Nah.
Jonathan, like Ivan, we can think experiences where there were times when we do think someone was at fault for not paying attention enough.
Right. It can definitely go the other way.
You don't get carte blanche.
Right.
You don't.
And it's for someone to explain if you were just completely ignoring the game. We're here to also play the game.
Right.
We are.
Now, unless they were on their phone going to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/geeksontrial, where you can donate and get early access to our episodes and really help us out, then that's fine. You could be, distracted.
Oh, yeah, that's total carte
as
blanche.
long
Yeah,
as you're
that's-
going to our Patreon and giving us money to help the show.
That's in the first line, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's right in the
If
first
you are
line.
here, you do not
Yeah.
need to pay attention to the game you're playing.
Right.
Or perhaps if you're on your phone, giving us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts.
Right. Or wherever else you get podcasts, because guess what? We're a podcast and we're a video. So you can find us on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts.
Well, thanks for joining us on today's episode. Tell everybody at home how they can find your projects online once this is over.
Will.
Well,
Yeah, I said his
as I
name.
say in the beginning, Roll for Crit, search for that. That will have tons of stuff. We got reviews, previews. We did recently a preview playthrough of the Talislantia game where Jonathan made an appearance as a sloth.
That's true.
Quite enjoyable. So just search for that. Mostly YouTube. Check it out. No podcast right now, so you just need to go to the one place.
That's right. All in one, baby. We'll put a link in the description. But yeah, you can find youtube.com/rollforcrit, all that stuff. You can follow me at Quince on Twitter, or you can listen to my other podcast, which is called The Yerky Boys with 2 E's. It's an Animorphs podcast. We're reading the Animorphs book series.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
If you like my voice here, you'll like it there as well.
And you can find me on Instagram. I'm Ivan Arhan on Instagram. And you can see my newest video where my dog Eddie is reviewing a doggy treat over on The Snack Guy on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did he like it?
You'll have to watch and find out.
Oh, I was hoping I'd get you.
Nope.
Spoilers.
Spoiler, I need them clicks, baby.
All right. Well, it's been fun. It's been a real trial. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. There wasn't a pun or anything there. I don't know what I did. That's it, I think. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's say this. And this has been Geeks.
On.
Shit.
Trial. We'll fix it in editing.
There it is. See you later.
See you later. Bye.